Hey Internet, this is Jacob Clifford and welcome to my YouTube channel. This week the US automaker General Motors said they're going to close 5 of their factories in the US and Canada and lay off more than 14,000 employees, and everyone freaked out. In this video I'm going to talk about what goes into a firm's decision to close down and, more importantly, give you some strategies that'll make you a better decision maker. Let's start off with a pop quiz. Assume that you own a toy company and you're considering developing a new set of action figures based on famous economists.
Let's go! What should we do to help the economy? I know! More government spending! No!
You do some market research and the total revenue you expect to earn is $100,000 and the total cost is $60,000. Obviously you can earn some profit, so you decide to move forward with the project. But after you spend $40,000 on development, you reevaluate things and you find out some things have changed. You still expect to earn $100,000, but it turns out your costs are a lot higher than you expected. Instead of costing you $60,000, the total cost of the project is going to be $120,000. Here's the question: should you move forward and produce the toys, or should you stop production and walk away from the project? Seriously, stop the video, think about it, and come up with an answer. It's clear that had you known from the beginning that the total cost would be $120,000, you never would have actually started the project. That's true, but what do you do now that you've already spent a whole lot of money? Well, the $40,000 that you spent is something that economists call a sunk cost. You can't get it back, so you have to ignore it and just move forward. To make good decisions, you need to only look at future benefits and future costs. So you should definitely ignore the sunk costs and move forward with the project. Let me explain why. Remember, thinking like an economist means thinking on the margin, looking at the additional benefits and the additional costs of your decisions. The additional cost of moving forward with a project is not $120,000. Since you already spent $40,000, the additional cost is only $80,000. And how much is the additional benefit? Well, it's the $100,000 you expect to earn in revenue. And since that additional benefit is greater than the additional cost, the best choice, the smart choice moving forward, is to continue with the project. Sure, you're going to lose $20,000, but that's better than the alternative. Think about it. What happens if you stop production and produce no toys? Well, you make a loss of $40,000 because that's the money that you already spent. Obviously, you'd prefer to make profit, but given this information, you're going to make a loss anyways. So should you stop production and have a $40,000 loss, or should you keep producing and have a $20,000 loss? Does that make sense? Do you understand the idea that sunk costs need to be ignored? Okay, new question with the same scenario. You're expecting to make $100,000 on selling the toys, except now when you reevaluate the project, you find out that it's not going to cost you $120,000, it's going to cost you $150,000. So you spent $40,000 and now you realize, oh, it's actually going to cost me a total of $150,000. So should you continue to produce or stop production? Again, ignore the $40,000 sunk cost and just look at the additional cost and additional benefit moving forward, right? The additional cost is going to be $110,000, which is more than the additional revenue, which is $100,000. So you should definitely stop production. It would be better to lose $40,000 rather than lose $50,000. It's this second example that you really need to understand, remember, and apply. Many people, they won't ignore that $40,000 sunk cost. Most people will continue to produce because they think, you know what, I already spent $40,000, I'll just keep going forward. This economically irrational behavior happens more often than you might think, and it's something you got to watch out for. For example, let's say you go buy some stock in a company and for valid reasons, the value quickly decreases and you'll lose $2,000. So you're all upset and no one likes losing money, and your first reaction might be to keep the stock and just hope that it goes up in the future, but that doesn't make any economic sense. I mean, you should choose whatever option is the best moving forward. But even people that understand the idea of sunk costs still don't do that. They hold on to the stock, or sometimes they sell the stock, but they adopt a more aggressive and risky investment strategy. They start thinking, oh man, I lost that money, I gotta get that money back, but they can't get it back. It's a sunk cost, and you gotta think like an economist. If you don't, you might end up making worse decisions in the future. Think of Google Glasses, or the Concorde, or the Microsoft Zune. I mean, probably never even heard of that, and there's a reason. For each of these examples, these companies had to say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's just move forward. Don't worry about all that money that we spent in the past. But don't think this concept only applies to money and business. It also applies to other things like dating. Imagine you were dating someone for a year, and although it was fun in the beginning, they're starting to annoy you. I mean, do you say, well, we've got to stay together, I already invested a year in this relationship? No, right? That time, that money, all that energy you spent in the relationship is a sunk cost. You have to ignore them and move forward. Let's go back and talk about General Motors closing those car factories. Now, for the most part, I try to keep politics out of my videos because my goal is to help you appreciate and understand economics, not fan the flames of division. But in this case, I've got to say something because both the left and the right are just nuts. I watched a lot of news on this, and most of the time the news was completely missing the mark. They weren't explaining what's going on and why it's happening. But there was one guy in the news, this GM executive out of Canada, that explained it best.
We have about 75 plants around the world, but we have far too many plants for the amount of demand in the marketplace. If there is a surge in demand for electric vehicles, then perhaps there's going to be a need for more production. But you don't produce things unless there's a market demand for the products.
It's heartbreaking to see all these people losing their jobs, but who is to blame? Say it with me. Consumers. People just don't want GM cars, and if they do want a GM vehicle, it's a truck, an SUV, a crossover, an electric car. And these factories aren't designed to produce those. They're designed to produce sedans, which are cars that no one really wants right now, and those factories were losing money for years. The decision to close them down was painful, but it would have been a whole lot worse if they continued to produce, made a loss, and eventually went bankrupt. I mean, then all the factories would close. Now, I don't want to open up a big debate about GM. That's not the point. The point is, losses, they're inevitable. You just can't expect to win every single time. So when you do lose, don't double down and make things worse. You have to ignore your sunk costs and move forward. I mean, that's what GM did, and someday that's what you have to do, because that is thinking like an economist. Now, if you're enrolled in a microeconomics class, there's a lot you still have to learn about shutting down and this idea of cost curves and seeing it on the graph. So make sure to watch the next video that talks about the shutdown rule. And if you're just watching this video because you like economics and want to learn more, then awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments if you like this video and what other concepts you want me to help you understand, okay? Thanks for watching. Until next time.